Okay, good morning, everyone. It is 8:30 in the morning on Tuesday, July 8th, and we're going to commence the Land Use and Transportation meeting for this morning. The first is the roll call, and I would just note for the roll that all members are present, plus we have Corey Byrne and Bill Friedrich in the office. If I've missed any other board members, let me know. Okay. So our first item of business then is the consent agenda. Item 2A, minutes from the Land Use and Transportation June 3rd, 2025 regular meeting and the payment of the bills and transfers. So I have a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion by Member Reeves, second by Member Abel. Any questions? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have those approved. Thank you. Item number 3 is appearance by members of the public and county employees. This morning we have 3 speakers who have signed up. And just as a reminder to the speakers, you have 5 minutes. So I will do you in this order. Tricia Braid, Ruth Burke, and Noah Tang. So if we would have Tricia come to the microphone, there'll be a timer on the screen for you.
Let the record show my appreciation for Community Planner Anthony Bauman, Zoning Director Phil Dick, and Zoning Enforcement Officer Daryl Mitchell for their responsiveness to my questions and suggestions related to the McLean County Regional Planning Commission's draft strategic land use plan. Those of us who are residents of and or stakeholders in the unincorporated areas of McLean County find ourselves increasingly irrelevant over time as it relates to development decisions in the county. Our voices and votes are too frequently lost to the wants of the city of Bloomington and town of Normal. Our irrelevancy, and ditto that to be your irrelevancy as county board members, is hastened by complacency, poor processes, procedures, and plans. To me, the Regional Planning Commission's strategic land use plan is a perfect example of this problem. According to the County Code, Chapter 20, this committee is tasked as a liaison between the full board and the commission. It is incumbent upon you to exercise your role and urge your fellow board members to apply the brakes to this runaway train of future plans. The executive committee has oversight. Hopefully they will also request senior staff appear at their next committee meeting to answer for the methodology. I became aware of the plan when I saw a WGLT Facebook post. Farmland my family owns in Funks Grove had been marked for future residential development. My first thoughts were, how are these areas, and any others for that matter, determined to be the location for future residential development? Same question for the future industrial development areas, and also, no thank you very much. Heck, the plan would grow the unincorporated area of Shirley, which is roughly 40 acres presently, by adding an additional 330 acres in the next 10 years of residential development. That's an 825% increase. Did the commission staff consult Dale Township trustees about the idea ahead of time, or is the obfuscation intentional? In this case, it seems that the commission is imposing a plan on Shirley residents out of ease because they have no corporate municipal organizational structure. Future land uses and intended planned land uses are lumped together in a haphazard fashion. Why does any area that is pasture or timber or a parcel with more than a handful of trees get labeled as natural resources? And why are these areas then assumed to be responsible for, according to the plan, climate change mitigation, floodwater management, and public recreation? The plan reads like the intention is to invite city folk out to anything labeled green to enjoy natural spaces, even if those spaces are private property or protected as nature preserves. Why did any rural parcel zoned R1 end up labeled as future residential development? Does the commission really intend that those parcels be developed beyond their current status? If no, why are they on the future map labeled yellow? Or is this some visual way of offloading the housing crisis to the county so that the casual viewer might agree, yes, look at those other places where we can build houses? I was told the yellow future residential development on our farmland was a mistake. If little old me can find errors as quickly as I did, how many other issues and mistakes are in the plan as presented? This calls into question the validity of the plan in total. No one with whom I've spoken so far can articulate the manner in which this plan will be presented for adoption by the county, city, and town. If the county does not adopt, but the other parties do, what then? Must there be consensus for the plan to be valid? Why is the East Side Bypass featured on the major roads map? How many times does that idea have to be killed dead for it to stay buried? There are inconsistencies between maps. Why can't this plan be layered in the existing MCGIS system? Why the resistance to using that public data to generate informed public comment? The commission's sparse public outreach directs community members to the commission office to view the plan in person. I went to the office on 2 occasions. I wasn't able to view the plan on either of those occasions. Why are the Bloomington and Normal libraries the only libraries where the plan is placed? Is there an intent to subvert rural residents' knowledge of the plan, or is it a complete incompetence on the parts of the commission's senior leadership to understand the very nature of the region they claim to plan for? How about placing a physical copy in every library in the county? When will elected officials consult the public for input on this plan? Moving it straight from the commission to the full board to vote to adopt is unacceptable. The current public comment to the commission itself is not a hearing format. The commissioners are not responsible to constituents. In point of fact, to whom are the commissions responsible at all? The plan should go through the committee structure. I refuse to accept that people for whom I cannot cast a vote will determine the future of the county. That goes for commission staff, commissioners, and the staff and electeds of the city and town as they operate within the ever-expanding extraterritorial jurisdictional boundary. Every time the ETG creeps farther into the county, more county authority is lost. It's like the 50s horror movie, The Blob. The county is being consumed. As county board members, you must hold this line and prevent governance creep by the city and town. I'm not against growth. I'm against our resources being depleted so that elected officials in town can press the easy button. Encourage the executive committee and the full board to instruct the commission to take the plan back to the drawing board, establish a certain process within the county structure that allows for responsibility to constituents, and come back with a thoughtful proposal that provides methods for equitable input from all stakeholders. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Burke.
I'm a professor at ISU, a landowner in Old Town Township, and a first-generation farmer. I'm deeply concerned about the repercussions of this plan. I'm going to focus on the environmental and ethical concerns of the process and plan itself. The Southeast Bloomington Industrial and Employment Center is a whopping 1,456 acres. That's almost 2 whole township sections. According to City of Bloomington zoning, this area zoned M1 and M2 could be a Google data center, a landfill, an adult detention center, or a nuclear power plant. Home sweet home. Much of Cheney's Grove Road falls into that 1.5-mile extraterritorial zone and would be subject to the City of Bloomington zoning. Nowhere in the plan does it outline or demonstrate action of working with the Illinois NCRS, Department of Agriculture, or providing LISA reports for proposed future zoning. Individual landowners pay for our own wells, septic systems, often have acreage in CRP, or pay out of pocket for our own land's restorations. We are now expected to also absorb and manage the runoff, light, and air pollution from a massive industrial site? Yes, because many of our properties have been designated under a vague natural resource label. My property's wetland is already overtaxed from runoff every single time it rains. Another specific example of the consequence of this plan regards the planned future residential development in East Bloomington. Through the Clean Water Act, Section 319, the EPA and the City of Bloomington invested $1.77 million from 2008 to 2018 to do stream restoration, water quality improvement, stormwater management, habitat restoration, in order to give back to the next generation of land and keep it in better shape than when it was handed to us. This Kickapoo restoration is designed to absorb runoff from a 480-acre subdivision. The future MCRPC plan adds an additional 405 acres of adjacent residential development for this restoration to absorb, double the capacity almost. Has this proposal been cleared with the EPA? Has the M2 industrial site in Southeast Bloomington been cleared with the EPA? In the recently approved transportation plan for the county, they write, quote, "In an era of increased understanding of the environmental consequence of development and infrastructure, the concept of sustainability has become more central to transportation planning," end quote. Is this a value that's exclusive only to transportation or also to land use? The rules governing this committee designate it as a liaison between the MCRPC and the board. It is incumbent on you to not recommend this plan as outlined. This plan does not oblige the City of Bloomington and Town of Normal to create their own natural resources and rather offloads this responsibility onto its rural residents. The same amount of land and natural resources cannot absorb this vast amount of expansion. This begs the question, who are we as a county? Are we suburban and urban residents surrounded by the people who feed America through both mass production and a thriving farmer's market? Or are we a sprawling industrial and subdivided jungle linked by highways that pull people away from our beautiful twin cities? This plan and the public comment are circulated online. I visited every single one of my neighbors in Cheney's Grove last week. Only one knew of this plan. One neighbor, an elderly woman, shared that she doesn't use the internet and she can't leave her house. And she probably couldn't have gotten all 4 flights of stairs to get here today. How does she make comment? Another neighbor's family has been on their land for over 100 years. That land is now future zoned as M2 use. This family was not aware of this. Even their home site is replaced by M2 use. Acceptance of this plan depends on the ignorance of the stakeholders. The voices behind this plan aren't bringing stakeholders along the knowledge curve, it's anchoring them to the bottom of it. By the time you all concede your authority, you've lost it. We are depending on you, dear board members, to honor the system that put you in these positions and to not find yourself unintentionally complacent. This plan has too many shortcomings as is for the board to even consider accepting and moving forward with this version. It requires major revisions and additionally planned public comment periods with obvious effort for inclusion of all county stakeholders' inputs. This means people and county municipalities. This cannot go forward as is. As an academic, when a peer points out a shortcoming in an article, I'm required to revise and resubmit. This is the case here. This plan would not receive a passing grade at any of my courses. Thank you.
Thank you, and Mr. Tang?
Always feel too tall for this microphone. I don't think I'll take up the entire 5 minutes, but I have some similar points to make about the plan as our previous two speakers. Let me first introduce myself to the board here. My name is Noah Tang. I live about 4 blocks from here. I am also a high school history teacher at Bloomington High School. In my free time, which is the summers, I am also the president of Strong Towns Blono. When looking at this plan through a Strong Towns lens, and if you haven't heard of this organization before, it is a nationwide urban planning and advocacy organization, figuring out and trying to make sure our communities are planned correctly, more compact, more walkable, and a lot of what is in this plan, I would say, is counter to what we want in this community. So first things first, I want to talk about the process. Right? The draft strategic land use plan feels much different, worse, than previous work completed by the Regional Planning Commission, with really no public input along the way from the very beginning, as has been already stated by the other two speakers this morning. People really need to be brought in from the beginning, and if that would have been the case, this draft would not be universally panned. Read the room. The East Side Corridor has been killed over and over again. It is not needed, and especially after the downsizing at State Farm corporate headquarters, the traffic counts don't necessarily warrant this, and I'll explain my direct opposition to the East Side Corridor in a bit. The Regional Planning Commission needs to restart this process from the beginning with stakeholders to ensure the plan encapsulates our community values, not just the town, not just the city, but the entire county. I'd rather have a plan that is late, but is built by the community, than a plan that is rushed for a deadline without meaningful discussion on the front end. Now, I'm going to talk about my opposition specifically to the proposed major roads map, specifically the East Side Corridor. This should never have been added to the strategic land use plan, as it has been defeated over and over and over again the past 10, 15 years. And I'm going to give us some Strong Towns points on why adding another highway-style road in town is a horrible idea. These roads don't pay for themselves. New infrastructure requires long-term maintenance, such as repaving, lighting, drainage, and the property tax revenue generated from nearby development often does not cover these costs, especially in low-density areas that we're going to be talking about on the east side of town. Now, I have some maps here of Bloomington Normal, how they have grown over the past 50 years or so. In the year 1970, Bloomington only had about 200 street miles. As of 2010, that number is up to 415 miles of street. And I think the perennial comment that I see on how can we improve this community, take care of the roads, we have a lot more roads to take care of than before and a lot less dense community to do so. So there's much more road to take care of for a lot fewer residents. And I think continuing upon this pattern of suburban sprawl is a very, very bad idea. Sprawl is fiscally inefficient, right? Highway expansions promote outward development, such as big box stores, single-use subdivisions, and generate less value per acre than compact walkable neighborhoods. My organization, Strong Towns Below Note, have done fiscal impact analysis of tax value per acre for parcels in Bloomington Normal, and consistently the inner core neighborhoods in downtown and uptown have the highest fiscal impact per acre on each of those lots. And I think that's very important to think about when we're talking about how to run a government. If you continue to build sprawling developments that don't pay for themselves, you start to see the continuing deterioration of our quality of our infrastructure, as is general everywhere, okay? Also, it deters local businesses and walkable design. This car-oriented infrastructure kills the viability of walkable mixed-use areas, replacing them with gas stations, drive-thrus, and chain retailers that don't contribute meaningfully to our local economy. I think that's an important point to understand. I don't want any more extractive businesses set up where the profits from said businesses leave this county forever. And lastly, a highway does not build wealth. It brings these big box stores, these chains, and it doesn't make a place that we're proud of. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tang. Thank you for all the speakers. We'll move on to item 4, a presentation about the strategic land use plan. As our speakers mention, it is our job as a liaison with the Regional Planning Commission to work on these sorts of plans. So I've asked for a presentation today. I would just sort of say that Executive Director Raymond Lai is joining us on Teams, so his voice is possible, but not his face. So if we have a direct question from him, you might hear him appear vocally, but not on the screen. And we have in his place Anthony Bauman, the community planner, to make a presentation for us today. The floor is yours.
All right. Can you hear me? Sound good? All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Anthony Bauman. I'm a community planner for the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. Thank you all for your time this morning, and thank you for allowing us to speak today. I'm here today to talk about the strategic land use plan for McLean County, the city of Bloomington, and the town of Normal, and give an update on the planning process. Next slide, please. First, I'd like to give some background on the plan and talk about what it is, how it'll be used. The land use plan is a guiding vision for how a community wants to use land in the years ahead. It shows what types of activities or developments like homes, businesses, parks, or schools the community hopes to see in different areas in the future. This plan will help guide growth and decisions so the community develops in an organized and thoughtful way. This plan does not change or regulate zoning. These two topics are similar in some regards, however, they are very different tools. Zoning establishes the legal authority of a jurisdiction to regulate what types of developments or activities are permitted on specific properties. In contrast, a future land use plan is a long-term vision outlining how the community hopes to develop in the future. As an example of how this plan will be used, in my experience as a municipal planner, I've used land use maps such as this one as one of the many tools to help aid in writing staff reports for the Zoning Board of Appeals. This allows the board to deliberate the standards of the zoning code while also giving context to long-term planning goals. Next slide, please. So now that we have a general idea of what this plan is meant to do, I'd like to give some context as to why the plan was warranted. While starting work on the larger McLean County Regional Comprehensive Plan, it was determined by staff from the local governments that an updated land use map was needed to address the changing landscape of the county. The most recent maps available predate major changes in our community, such as the impacts of Rivian and Ferrero, the housing shortage, and the effects of COVID-19. Therefore, there was a need for an updated land use map in order to make informed decisions. The way this plan has been developed is slightly different than the usual land use planning process. Typically, land use plans are included in the larger planning efforts of comprehensive plans and include detailed analysis and specific goals and action items. However, as this plan's main objective is to provide an updated map for local governments, those more detailed aspects are left up to those local governments for further development. As it stands, this plan will provide updated spatial information while allowing local municipalities to follow goals and objectives set in existing comprehensive plans until such time that those plans are updated. As for the county, we are currently working on the next comprehensive plan update, and this land use plan will be included as part of that with further refinement, public input, and specific goals. That being said, I would also like to add that MCRPC has been the lead agency during this planning process. However, staff from the City of Bloomington, Town of Normal, and McLean County have all been involved in every aspect of this plan, from future land use decisions to the public outreach process. Next slide, please. I would like to now move on to some of the content within the plan. We began this process, this strategic land use planning process, by collecting assessor data in order to create an existing land use inventory. After refining that data, we were able to create the first iteration of the existing land use map, and then from there, we sent that map out to staff from the city, town, and county to make any necessary corrections on the existing land use map. Next slide, please. So this resulted in what you see on the screen here and what is included in the planning document, which is the existing, what is being used on the ground right now today. Next slide. After creating the existing land use map, MCRPC sent the map to the city, town, and county staff and asked them to provide proposed future land use changes. After receiving the spatial data from each local government partner, MCRPC compiled the information into one cohesive future land use map that covers the entirety of the county. This information was also recently added to an interactive map with our current public outreach phase. That's now available on our website for better visibility for public comment. Next slide, please. So this is the first draft of the future land use map that is also included in the plan document. Towards the end of the planning process, or towards the end of the first draft process, MCRPC staff presented the strategic land use plan to the May 6 County Zoning Board of Appeals and the June Planning Commission meetings for the City of Bloomington and the Town of Normal to gather some initial feedback before starting the public outreach phase, June 23rd. Next slide, please. So this leads me to the next steps for this planning process. Our initial public comment period, like I had mentioned, began on June 23rd and will go through July 23rd. This included a posting of the draft plan document and the online public comment forum. In that time, we have received a lot of feedback regarding the plan content and process. The main comment we're hearing is the desire for additional public engagement. So according to that, in the next 2 months, MCRPC staff, as well as staff from the local government partners, will be attending multiple stakeholder meetings to present and collect feedback on the strategic land use plan. Just this week, we'll be heading to the McLean County Farm Bureau to meet with them, present the plan, and gather some feedback from them, with more stakeholder meetings to come. We are also planning a more in-depth public outreach process. We're planning on hosting in-person public meetings in the months of August to further discuss the plan. At this time, the meeting dates, times, and locations are not set in stone, but when we do have that schedule, we will be posting them on our website and putting out a press release for that. Next slide, please. Thank you all again for your time. If you have any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And if you think of any questions after this meeting, my contact information is on the screen there. Thank you.
I have some questions. Does anyone else want to start? Go ahead, Mr. Duffy.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for kind of the presentation as well as the information. I just had a question on the draft proposals as well as the initial map. So it seems that industry was expanded, the definition was broadened to employment center. I was just wondering what the rationale behind that is, because in the change version, areas like the airport to, Rivian to, it seems that the definition is broadened and there's obviously more industry. I just wanted to know what the rationale, including both employment and industry, was.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said before, all the decisions for future land use were agreed upon and suggested by the full group of staff from the city, town, and county, as well as MCRPC staff. The main rationale for that is that for employment centers like State Farm and Country Financial, the infrastructure needed to support a land use of that type is similar to industrial scale developments. And so we figured grouping those two might be a easy way to kind of streamline this map and make it a little bit more generalized so that there's a little bit more room for individual municipalities and local governments to make those final decisions. I think after the comments we've been receiving, that's something we're definitely going to go look back on and see if maybe we can split those back out, because it does look like there's a lot of industrial development there, but in reality, it's a combination of employment centers and industrial, which obviously can be confusing.
Additional questions? Okay, well, I will start. I have a lot of them. So I first want to ask, when was the last strategic land use plan put together by the McLean County Regional Planning Commission?
So I believe this is the first of its kind, a separate plan that encompasses all three major regions, the city, town, and county. The city's comprehensive plan has a land use section in there that includes a future land use map. Same with the town and county. So really I think it's 2009 for the county is the most recent plan, 2015 for the city, and 2017 for the town.
Okay, so this is the first time that this process has happened for the three entities together?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully, we're learning some things, right?
Yes, a
for the
lot.
future. Okay. So there is no sort of typical cycle then if this is the first time, but in terms of the county itself, what is the typical cycle for these strategic plans, land use plans?
The last comprehensive plan was 2009. Do you know when the previous comprehensive plan was done to that? I'm not sure what the typical cycle is for
Okay.
the
So it's
planning
been
process for comprehensive planning, but
more than 15 years since this has happened. Okay.
Typically, they should be much more often than 15 years, but it's been longer than it needs to be, in my opinion.
I would agree with you, Mr. Dick. Anthony, the plan that was presented, as you said in your presentation, was a collective effort by staff and the city, town, and county administration. Were any representatives from the townships or the municipalities in the county consulted in that process?
not at this point. That was what this public outreach phase was meant to
But in the
cover.
production of the plan, nobody was.
Right, yeah, we relied on city, town, and county staff to provide us with those updates.
Okay. I know the answer to this, but were any elected officials consulted in the drafting of the plan?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Okay, I appreciate that. So one of the things that I have heard in many of the public kind of feedback to me is the concern, not only with the kind of process to produce the plan. I understand that now you're taking public comment, but because of that lack of input, that the public commenting time feels too constricted. And you put on the screen in the presentation today the same schedule which has been published. Has that date not been extended to incorporate more public feedback time?
So our thought process on that is, we definitely can revisit that. We can extend the existing outreach timeline. But we're planning on extending the entirety of the plan to allow for more in-depth public input. So this, I would chalk it up as the first initial round of outreach. We're going to go back, we're going to talk to stakeholders, we're going to talk to township supervisors, road commissioners, elected officials, and then host a few public comment forums, in-person public meetings. And then we'll most likely set up a second round of outreach with an updated draft plan that hopefully addresses many of the concerns that we've heard today.
So the plan then is to keep the deadline the same, so I'm restating it for the purpose of clarity, is to keep the deadline the same, but to acknowledge that the public feedback period is not in fact over. It's one round. There will be return to the plan to revise the plan, and then there will be another round that will include planned community outreach in the rural areas in addition to the city and the town. Am I
Correct.
hearing that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to emphasize that I think that is absolutely critical. We saw in some of the feedback, like the ROC canceled their meeting in June, and so there is no meeting time between the end of these periods. So I think it's important to understand that not everybody is getting the ability to participate in the first round.
Right.
And as we sort of said in a meeting together, is that, generally speaking, the process in the county is that a lot of this work happens on the front end with community feedback, engagement with the different partners. And so the first draft of a plan is usually pretty far along, right? I would consider it, like almost one step away from publication.
Right.
But the presentation of the plan that was given to us was so far behind that it's very confusing to people who assume that this is sort of basically finished.
Right.
Right? And it's not basically finished. And so I would encourage you to find ways on your website and in your community outreach to emphasize that you're still in phase like 1.
Right. Yeah, we're working
Right.
on that now. The current website we have has the ability to be updated, so we're adding an
Right.
informational page there.
Because
to
I
kind of
think people
explain.
still see that July deadline on the page and think, like, that's it.
Right.
So I would encourage you to be more transparent about that sort of phase and how that's going to look and when the next phase is going to happen. Because, to quote one of my former colleagues on the board, is that farmers are busy, families are busy. They're not keeping track of all of this stuff in the same way that we are. And they kind of need to know and you need to give enough time for community groups to reach out, the local mayors, the Farm Bureau, and other people to reach out and give them time to get that information out. So I think being more transparent about that process would be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else have any questions or things they'd like to say? I share.
Yeah, again, thank you for coming. At any point in this plan, was it intentional that privately owned property was included as an expansion area?
So, yes and no. So the future land use map, the designations of residential development, or industrial development, does imply that there's going to be like a future groundbreaking development there. As part of the public comment period, we've realized that confusion, and that's something we're going to touch back on as well, is that theoretically every piece of property in the county has a land use. And so, yes, the private property will encompass that. There will be a land use for privately owned property. Whether or not it was, designated as a residential development for a huge subdivision wasn't necessarily the intent of this plan, so that's something we're going to touch back on.
Member Reeves.
One agency I didn't see listed was the airport, and they seem to have their super site that's going in. Is there integration for that plan into this plan?
So, like I said in the presentation, this plan has a very narrow scope of work. We're not trying to develop a fully comprehensive plan for all 3 municipalities that includes all different aspects of plans that are coming out or have come out recently. Those types of more detailed plans, incorporations of those plans, are going to be left up to the local governments. So when the town does their next comprehensive plan update, they can utilize the strategic land use plan as the map in that plan and then add their specific justifications for that, just like how the county's update, which is coming hopefully fairly soon, will incorporate some more detailed aspects of land use planning, some more clarifications between what the county expects to happen in this development.
Zeorth.
Apologize if I'm asking you to repeat this, but could you share again what your specific plan will be to engage the rural communities, the townships, small town mayors, in the development of the plan? I think you said it was going to be community outreach, but what intentional steps will be taken to ensure that engagement and feedback?
Yeah, so this week on Thursday, we're meeting with the Farm Bureau, which is kind of the first step of the stakeholder meetings. At the end of the month, we're meeting with the Rural Mayors Association. We'll be giving a presentation there as well. And for like the specific outreach, we're planning on doing a handful of public meetings, public comment forums, hosting most likely one closer to the central area of the county, which is Bloomington Normal, and then finding another area out in the county to host a public meeting, invite township supervisors, road commissioners, and addition to that, set up specific meetings with just the supervisors and the road commissioners as well. You know, maybe not want to, maybe can't make some of the public comment periods, but we want to make sure we reach out specifically to those entities as well.
Member Reeves?
Could you add us rural representatives to the list too?
Yeah, absolutely.
Member Abel?
I do have a question about the restoration areas and potentially protected areas and nature preserves and things like that one of our public commenters brought up, and wanting to know if there was consultation with the EPA. It kind of sounds like that may not have been something that would have been done in this plan, but maybe the more comprehensive plan that's coming. But I am curious about how those decisions were made to mark those areas for future development.
Yeah, so the natural resources definition in this plan is a combination of existing parks and golf courses, green space, as well as the USGS forest layer. So it's a layer provided by the USGS that outlines forested area in the county, and then combine that with flood hazard zones. So then all of those together have been created into a natural resources layer that outlines recreation is one of those definitions in there, but realistically that definition is meant to be more of an environmentally protective definition. It doesn't necessarily just allow private land to be used as a recreation area, but more so protect it as this area with forest is something that's pivotal to the development of the county and making sure that we have those natural areas for years to come. And so those are specifically called out instead of just kind of being blanketed over by an ag designation or residential designation. We thought that calling out the natural resources was going to be an important process in this. As for reaching out to the EPA and stuff like that, that comes a little bit more in the zoning aspect of planning, where when you actually start that development process, those are the people you need to reach out to. In this case, that wasn't something that we did.
I have an additional question and a request. So the question is, so between now and whatever that date is in July, you're going to get public feedback and do some of this work. What is the process for updating the draft and then re-releasing for another phase of public comment? Are the changes to the draft going to be made in that same group of city, town, and county staff?
Yes, I would imagine so. My vision for it, we don't have it completely planned out yet, but my anticipation is going to be ending this public outreach phase, collecting the comments, meeting with that group, and then going out doing more public comment, talking to stakeholders, going to those meetings, getting information from the public to see what they want changed, compiling all of that information, and then updating the plan.
Okay, so as a matter of process, how are the public comments going to be communicated to those staff people from the city, town, and county?
We have a couple of draft documents put
Right,
together
so they're going to
already.
be shared in whole?
So, yes, they've been condensed into similar topics. So,
Okay.
There's maybe 27 comments currently, and so there's maybe 18 on this list, some of which were duplicate comments. We're talking about the same, concerns. So
Okay.
those have been distilled down. Names have been removed from the
Sure.
comments, so those won't be included.
So individuals, say, who come to public fora and make their voices heard in that manner, will there be transcripts of those preserved for the staff members who are making these adjustments?
Yeah, we will have staff members there taking notes. We're going to come up with some interactive tools, maybe even just, sticky notes on a map or actual worksheets to do in those public comment,
Do-
or public forums.
Again, to sort of repeat what one of the public commenters said, that there are people in the community who may not be internet savvy and able to use that methodology. So I think it's really important that however they manage to say what they have to say, that it gets recorded
Right.
with the same level of seriousness as somebody who can use the McGIS layers, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, and so my my request for you is that as you go into draft 2 and re-release draft 2 for people to evaluate, that those layers are added to the map, right? I mean, one of the biggest concerns that was expressed is that it was difficult to navigate the plan in terms of lot lines and roads and things like that. But if we can add an actual layer with the new draft information at the start, that would, I think, help people to, as we discussed, right? People are gonna focus in on their property, their
Right.
neighborhoods, their parents' ranch, farms. So if we can make sure that what we're releasing in draft 2 meets those kind of community needs from the beginning, I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is available right now.
The
So on our-
layers are available.
On our website, there's an interactive map viewer that you can see the future land use plan. You can see the existing land use as well as the future roadways. So all of that is on the website. That is on our website. There's a link there that'll take you to the strategic land use homepage, essentially.
Okay.
And you can access PIN numbers, land uses. There's no like ownership information on there, but there's enough information to find your parcel and see what its land use is at this point.
Okay,
We didn't see a need to put it on the McGIS system quite yet, as it's still a draft. But this interactive map we have now is not just as good, but it does what it needs to do.
okay, thank you. Any other, Mr. Fagan?
It sounds like up till now, the request for public comment has been more passive on the part of the commission, making them come to you. Going forward, is there any plan or can there be a plan to actively go to these people seeking feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're planning on hosting those 2 public comment forums. Again, we don't know exactly where or when yet, but within the next 2 months to send out those invitations, make sure that we can get as many people there in person as possible so that we can talk about the plan, we can get their feedback, and be there in person with them to get their input.
I know you're gonna have one centrally located one in town, and then you're saying one outside of the municipalities. I'm not sure how my colleagues from those rural county board districts feel about only having one, but I feel like our county is very large and more than one and outside of Bloomington Normal feels kind of necessary to me.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. I guess I meant more so one, a meeting, some meetings centrally, some meetings outside. So there will be not only, Bloomington Normal locations when we do this next phase of outreach.
Just to make sure that in our conversation, we talked about letting maybe the rural mayors and the township supervisors help guide that and help find the appropriate locations because they know
Yep.
where people can access and what's sort of a natural place for gathering. So is that still the plan to allow them to help us
Yeah,
drive this bus a little bit?
Yep, we're reaching out to the township road commissioners, supervisors, to meet first, and then invite them at that meeting to a public comment forum and figure out where those places, those
Where
best
those should
places are gonna
be,
be.
yeah. Not letting us tell them where they should meet, but letting
Right.
them tell us where's the best place to meet.
Yeah.
Any further comments or questions? Well, I'll reiterate the thanks for coming, Anthony, and I know this is a long process, and we're going to stay on it, so
Yeah, good, that's good.
we'll be talking about this again soon.
Perfect. Thank you for
Thank you so
having me.
much. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to departmental matters. Item 5A, Jerry Stokes. Item 1A is request approval of a resolution on the June 24, 2025 project letting. Can I get a motion, Member Fagan, second by Member Reeves? Floor is yours, Jerry.
Yes, thank you. So we had a letting where we're going to do a couple projects yet this year. The first one is a latex overlay project that's going to be on Ropp Road. And so Stark Excavating was the low bidder, and so this is the project where we'll hydroblast the concrete and then put a 3-inch overlay on the bridge deck itself. I think I showed pictures of this maybe last meeting. And then the second project was McLean County Asphalt to do what we call like skip patching at different sections around the county. So we have maybe some culverts that are rough and or some other spots that we may not know about yet. So they're going to go around and do this type of work here yet this year. So just a couple smaller projects for this letting.
Any questions about this item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of 5A1A, request approval of a resolution for the June 24th, 2025 project letting, please say aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. We'll move to 5A1B, request approval of a resolution for the June 30, 2025 project letting. Can I get a motion to get that on the floor? Motion by Member Reeves, second by Member Leffler.
So I would have done this on the same letting, but as soon as we advertised for the June 24th letting, we received the plans from the engineering firm that this project was ready. So we were able to fit another letting in. So that's why there's different dates. But this is a bridge in West Township that's got timber planking for the abutments. And so the timber planks are starting to fail. And so it's causing settlement basically at the bridge approach because it's losing the soil. And so this will remove the bridge planks and put in a metal sheet pile that will be the new abutments, and then we'll cap over the top of that. So Stark Excavating was the low bidder again on this project. This is a 50-50 split with the township and the county. The township's using their motor fuel tax funds, and then we're using our county bridge funds to do this. The existing bridge planks are like 30 foot tall, and the new sheet piles are going to be 38 foot tall. And so usually they're a lot smaller than that, and the contractor can usually have they can put a specific hammer on their hi-ho, and they're able to drive it. With these longer sheet piles, they have to bring in a crane, so that's why there's basically additional expense that for this project.
Anyone have any questions about this item? Member Reeves.
Where exactly is this Star Bridge located at, Jerry? It's not included in the map here.
It is just about 3.5 miles, 4 miles northwest of Bellflower. So there's not a whole lot of traffic on the road or anything like that. It's just something that needs to be addressed before it. And I should mention that the rest of the bridge is in really good shape. When we go out and rate them, I think the deck and the superstructure are rated at 7s, and so 8's the max. And so this is really the only problem with the bridge. And so I think it'll last another 50 years when it's all said and done.
Any additional questions? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor of 5A1B, request approval of a resolution for the June 30th, 2025 project letting, please say aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes. We'll move to 5A1C, request approval of a bridge construction petition for the joint culvert replacement number 1 for Aerosmith Township Road District. And can I get a motion to put this on the floor? Member Duffy, second by Member Reeves.
So yes, our Aerosmith Road District road commissioner came in and said he was having a problem with this area on this culvert. It's hard to determine what the size of the culvert was because the ends were so blocked, and so I think water's going over the road at this location. So he requested us to size it, and it did qualify for a joint culvert where it's 50% for the township and 50% for the county. So it's another project we should be able to get done yet this year.
Any questions about this item? Member Fagan.
What was the cause of the blockage?
Here, I'll let you go on that.
So both ends were pretty silted in, and the area for this culvert is decently sized, but it's just, it flows pretty fast through this area. And there was a hole in the road, so the existing pipes rusted through. And so that's primary reason he wanted it to get replaced. And then, yeah, I would say silt and debris from the fields.
Any additional questions? Okay, all those in favor of 5A1C, request approval of a bridge construction petition for joint culvert replacement number 1 for Arrowsmith Township Road District, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We'll move on to 5A2. These are project summaries. Jerry, would you give us your picture show?
So yes, the first one is the Golden Bridge project out on Lexington Leroy, a couple miles north of Leroy. And so the bridge deck's been poured and all the forms have been removed. So they actually, yesterday, they started removing the road work or moving the road. And so they're going to complete the road work here. They started on some of the ditch work. And so I just got a few pictures here. It kind of shows the bridge itself. I don't know if that's me. So this is, like I said, a couple more pictures of the bridge. This is on the east side of the bridge where they kind of had their run around to get back and forth. Another picture from the east side. You kind of can see that through there. So they've done some of the ditch work and put some of the riprap in. So this is the road here. They've actually taken all this out. I think it was a couple hundred feet on each side of the road. They're taking out and then putting a new base in there. And hopefully by the end of next week, we'll be putting hot mix back in there. And then we can start getting the guardrail and everything kind of buttoned up and get this thing opened up here very soon. So any questions on that particular project?
So you think you'll have it up and running before the school season's back up?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
The completion date's August 15th. So the next project, I don't have any pictures of the next two projects. I'll just kind of give you an overview of what's going on there. So PJ Keller going from the spillway to Lexington. The first lift of hot mix has been put on. All the shoulders have been done. What they're actually working on they started today was there's a section, about 2 mile section from I-55 going to the west that was done a couple years ago with the wind farm project. We are actually putting safety shoulders on that portion as well. And so they are so it's kind of a separate operation. So they're doing that today and tomorrow on both sides of the road. And then next week, they're supposed to come and put the final surface lift on. And so that should be completed. And then we got some guardrail work, and they'll have to come in and put the rumble strips in for the safety shoulders and that type of stuff. But I'd say, by the end of next month, it'll be complete as well. So, and then the third project is Stringtown Road. And so the contractor will be finishing up the final surface. He's got 2 miles to go. Should finish that up today. And then come back and put the aggregate shoulders on there. And there's some guardrail work with that accordingly to do. So I think that project will be wrapped up here in the next couple of weeks. And they'll be moving on to some other ones.
It's nice and hot and dry, so you can get a lot of road work done.
Right.
The rest of us are dying, but at least it's good for that. Any other questions for Jerry?
I do have 2 other projects that that aren't contract projects, but it's some of the projects that the county highway department's been working on. And so one of them is so this is a aluminum box culvert out in Anchor Township that we did. It was on the books for last year, but the box wouldn't come in time. And do you remember the dimensions on this?
I think it's 15.5 by 7.5.
So it's 15.5 foot wide by 7.5 foot tall. And so it comes together, it's kind of like a Lego set, basically putting this together and bolting all that. And so that's kind of what these guys are doing here. We put the floor in and then get the braces in, and then there's a bunch of bolts that you can see along here that our crew was putting in. And so we did that because the other box was in really bad shape. They said when they removed it was a concrete box culvert, and they said it just kind of disintegrated as they were taking it out. So so we went with this. We've done probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 of these types of aluminum box culverts throughout the county. So our guys are pretty good at putting these things in. So, you know, it doesn't work everywhere. We do have another one that we're going to be doing in Cheney's Grove Township here yet this summer. It's a little bit smaller and that. So I just got some pictures here. It kind of shows the process. So this is when it's all in. We got the head walls and wing walls here, and where it's backfilled. This is kind of where they're still backfilling it, everything. And here's what we call the dead man. It kind of holds the head walls and the wing walls in place. So those are stair step. We put them like every couple of feet as we're backfilling to kind of hold everything in place. And then so it's kind of the final. Well, we still got to go back and touch it up and seat it and everything, but so it's all complete and opened up, and then we'll the road commissioner wants to put a hot mix patch on this next year, kind of let everything settle out over the winter, and do that. So we'll get that done next year. So so that's kind of what it looks like here. I don't know, it probably took us about 2 weeks to complete from start to finish. So any questions on that one? So the next project is on our Hudson Secor Road. And so this is a road that kind of connects into Woodford County over on north of Carlock. And so it's a 1,000-foot long road that we have because it goes from our County Highway 12 up to the Woodford County line. And it's been in bad shape for quite a long time. And so we went in there with our hi-ho and took off the existing pavement, and then took all the existing aggregate and cored it all out, and that's kind of what we're doing here. And went down. We actually were going to go down a foot. We ended up going down to 18 inches because the soil was so bad that we needed to get more of that out of there. And so we took all this down. Then we brought in oversized rock with our guys and our tandems, and then we brought in an additional layer of rock over the top of the oversized. So I've got a few more pictures here to kind of show that. This machine here that we call it an eighth machine that we have, and so it's like we put the dirt in the windrows, and it picks up the dirt and puts it in, shoots it into our trucks, and then we haul it away as that. And this is kind of where we were putting in some under drains, some wheat pipes we call them, underneath the road to help drain the subgrade since it was in such bad shape beforehand, and so that'll help draw some of the moisture out and keep everything dry as possible. So that's kind of what we did. Put some oversized rock in there, so you kind of can see we were just putting rock to hold everything down. So this was kind of the start. This is kind of where it was ended, right before we had the subgrade, and we're putting the oversized rock in. So it's kind of a makeshift snowplow, the old snowplow that we had, that we put on the front of our grader to spread out the oversized rock in place. And it's kind of another picture of that. And then this is a picture of us putting in this what we call CA6 road rock. And so that was going on top of the oversized. And so we did that, and I kind of got that all, we put that all in, we compacted as we go. This is we have a truck with our water trucks. We put that in there, and we do it kind of in lifts and water, especially since it's been so hot. And we water it, compact it, move it back and forth, water it some more, and compact it to firm it up. And so that's kind of what he's doing here, is just kind of moving from side to side and getting as much water in there as possible. And so I think maybe in maybe a week and a half, then our oil and chip contractor will be in here to put the oil and chip surface on this road.
Very good. Anybody have any questions about those? Y'all are busy. Anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's good. Thanks.
Okay. All right, then we'll move on to 5B. Phil, you don't have anything for action, but is there anything you want to say about permit summary?
No, thanks.
Okay, all right. Then we'll move on to 5C. Cassie Taylor, our county administrator. Ms. Taylor?
Thank you, Chair Klein. I have no items to present for action, but I do want to recognize two people in the room and ask them to come up to the podium if they would like. We've just started Connect Go, which is our new rural transportation system in the county. It has completed its first week in existence, and Mark Hoffman is the marketing manager for Connect Transit and Connect Go. And Brandon Miles is our rural coordinator. And I'm putting them on a spot. I don't know that they were prepared to come up to a podium, but
We were definitely not prepared for that. But I'm going to hand out these flyers just so that you guys have something to refer to since we don't have a presentation.
Thank you, Mark.
Here, I'll take one.
Well, so basically, we've been running this since July 1. So it was
1 week with a
approved in late April. We've been running it since July 1. The idea is to be extremely flexible with this service since we have never done this before. So the idea is to be really mindful of who's going to ride it and hope that we can get enough people to do it to make it a useful product. If you look at the second page of the flyer, the first page is basically the flyer we give out to people who basically give them the day-to-day operational information. That information has changed every day since we've started it. Actually, every day since April, we've changed it just to make it, as we learn a little bit more, we're trying to figure things out and how easy it is. We have the first 4 days, basically a report for that. We provided 36 rides. We denied 8 rides based on the timing of it. We're running an 8 to 5 system. The first ride happened July 1st at 8:15 a.m. And the last ride that day, I believe, concluded around 4:30?
About 4:30,
Yeah. We have an 82% on-time rating. Part of that was a software error that we fixed, so hopefully the next week it'll be a little better. We've had destinations in Bloomington, Cooksville, Downs, Hayworth, Hudson, Leroy, Lexington, and Normal so far, as far as origins and/or destinations. The rides you can see there, purpose of rides have been shopping. Majority of it's been shopping, medical. There's been some people who actually we've provided service to work for a few people who actually, a few of them are already our mobility riders. So they were able to use the service both for the same day, ride a mobility ride, then take a ride out. That person in particular I'm thinking of went to Green Gables to work and then brought them back. And then some various reasons that we don't know. So also, as of right now, this service is zero fare to kind of mimic what was happening before. That will probably have to adjust as we go forward. Yeah, that's pretty much it right now. So any questions or anything?
Mark, when you have 8 denials, what happens with those? I mean, do you find another option? I mean, it's not like a flat denial, but it's a sort of denial for the first request, and then we move on to reaccommodate?
Great question. So when it's denied, so far it's been because of the timing. We don't have another bus to send, or that bus is already occupied. So we've been training our staff to offer the next available time. So far, so good, but in the future, obviously, we wouldn't like to have denials and things of that nature, so.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The denials are almost exclusively because of the timing of it. So we're not denying people for any other reason other than we just can't get out farther out wherever they are and where we get our bus to them. So in that time, that's basically what's going on right now.
Yep.
For off-the-cuff presentation, I do really appreciate all the metrics that they're providing, and I hope to see that continue. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions before you? Okay. Thanks for your graphics, Mark.
Yep.
Mark's a graphic designer, so he can always whip these things out overnight, honestly. Okay,
And that is all I have for the committee.
okay. We'll move on to 6, other business and communications. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, August the 5th at 8:30 a.m. Does anybody have any announcements that they need to make? Okay, seeing none, this meeting will be adjourned. Thank you so much for your time.